Hi, everyone. It's Kevin Sharp. Time for another edition of A Page I Love. Today I'm joined by artist Chuck Patton. Chuck, welcome to Comic Art Fans and the CAF Plus channel. We're happy to have you here.
Thank you, Kevin. How you doing?
Great. And thank you again for taking the time. Today we're going to be talking about not only a page that you love, but a page you used to own from Magnus Robot Fighter by artist Russ Manning. Can you start us off with were you a Magnus fan as a kid, or when would you have found this comic originally?
Magnus, I believe, started in 60, I want to say 64, but it could have been 66. Thing is, was that yes, I was a huge fan, huge fan of Russ Manning. I love both his Tarzan and Magnus. I can't remember. I always say Tarzan. His Tarzan hit me first, and then Magnus came out and really just cemented it for me. It was a vision of the future that nobody else was drawing. Very slick, very adult. And I mean by adult was that it wasn't the usual just put finicky things over things. Everything had a form and function, strong artistic form and function. And I'm from Detroit, and so as a kid, we used to see a lot of automotive design work come up in some of the buildings. I used to live not far from the Fisher Building, and they used to have a gallery of a lot of the artists, in particular people like Sid Mead, and whose artwork really grabbed me as a kid. It said futuristic right off the bat, and slick and chrome, and nothing like the crappy spaceships we saw in 50s monsters movies. These felt so progressive, so ahead of its time. And that's what hit me about Magnus. On top of the whole thing of this is a guy who killed robots with his bare hands, which I loved. There was that combination, that sort of futuristic savagery that also translated from Manning's work on Tarzan, and that just grabbed me. I just loved it. And that scene in particular is so powerful because it comes after a couple of books where Magnus has to defend himself, not using his hands, but his whole message was mankind was too dependent on machines and that they've gotten soft. And all of a sudden, here he is now coming up to defend that in court with a robotic judge. And the judge is done in such a fashion that you go, wow. It's like, did anybody see the irony of this? That, he's defending himself in front of this thing that he says, I got to stop you guys from taking over. And here you are, this robot is the one making the decision. This book came out in 67, a huge, very emotional charged year for me as a kid, growing up and seeing what was happening socially, especially in Detroit, because not far after that, we had the famous Detroit riots. So a lot about social upheaval and change and everything. And here is Magnus in a way addressing that in his own fashion without it being so overt. Plus, so he had the power of that scene of just so quiet. He isn't killing right now. That'll come later. He's not fighting the robots, but it was so sci-fi for me. It was what sci-fi meant, ahead of his time, but also reflecting the times we were in. And that got me. I love the way it was drawn. As an artist, it really appealed to me. It told me that action scenes weren't everything. You have to understand the quiet scenes. You had to be a storyteller. And here is Magnus again, everyone else in the black robes and everything. He's in his red ceramic miniskirt, he stands right out, and the chrome around him. And here he's defending mankind, and I thought, again, 10 years old, that was just blowing my mind. And I love that sort of quiet intensity. And I realized that's the power of art. If I was to be an artist, I have to understand that. It's more than just understanding the fight scenes and knowing how to draw a gun or a car or whatever. It was about being able to portray figures. And he was this incredibly noble figure in this very stark, futuristic setting.
Now, this page was in your collection. How did you come to acquire this?
Well, by irony, see if I got the story right. When I turned pro, I I was, of course, exposed to a lot of other pros' work, and I realized I was making the money where I could buy some stuff. And I remember there was the original cover painting of Magnus #1 was available. This was at San Diego, and I remember not having enough money. and I couldn't get that cover. It was outbid by another artist friend of mine, and which always breaks my heart, when I think about it, because I really wanted that cover. And then by irony, that page was available. And I went and it immediately grabbed me like I need to get this because it was not only one of my favorite issues of Magnus, it was just that, look, you didn't get the cover, but you really want Russ Manning's work. And that was the only thing available at the time. So I was grateful to have that. And I held on to it for a very, very long time.
I'll put you on the spot just in case you remember what the price tag was when you bought it.
I can tell you right off. The cover was the cover that I missed out was $100. All I had was 50, and the guy took 50 for the page. So it was like, okay, I was too short to get the cover, but I had just the right amount to get that page.
Mm,
And in the long run, I'm really happy I did.
indeed. I think you might have just heard a collective groan from everyone in the audience right now at those price tags.
Oh, listen, there's a lot you can groan about. I mean, just the fact we could go to San Diego in one day back then, park and walk in, and you can't do that now. you know. And as a working artist, seeing how the prices have changed, yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot to cry about.
Well, Chuck, thanks again for taking the time. This was our first chance on here to talk about Manning and also any comic published by Gold Key. So
Yeah.
a double treat, and really appreciate you taking the time and walking us through this.
No, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to do that. I mean, Manning is still a huge influence on me.